Calderon's rift didn't scream. It whispered. A garbled pulse came through static, thin and broken, as though the colony itself had been too afraid to cry out properly. Shields failing, multiple hostiles, no response from. Then silence. Commander Ava Rourke stared at the hollow void, arms folded, eyes locked on the frozen signal trace hovering above the command table aboard HSS Revenant. Around her, her bridge officers shifted uneasily. That came from a civilian colony, said Lieutenant Imani Shar, her voice low but tense. They weren't on the emergency frequency. This was a pirate loop. They were jamming the official bands, Rourke replied. Means someone didn't want them heard. Chief Engineer Luca made a sour face as he slouched near the reactor panel. Someone like the Gorvaks. That name dropped a shadow over the deck. Even the AI, Mother, momentarily paused its ambient vocalizations. I thought they kept to their own regions, Shar said. Nobody's seen a live Gorvaks in a decade. Until today, Rourke muttered. The crew fell silent. Outside, the vast black of the Baratai void stretched like a wound across the stars. Somewhere inside it, Calderon's rift was burning. Fleet Command won't authorize engagement, Mother said at last, voice smooth, distinctly feminine but edged in synthetic confidence. Official directive is recon only. Do not engage. Observe and report. Ava didn't answer immediately. She circled the holotable, hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes didn't blink, just bored into the silent colony marker on the map. Red blips swirled around it like sharks. She tapped the interface. The map zoomed in. 10 enemy signatures. One for every 100,000 civilians down there. They won't make it to fleet response, she said. Not unless we buy them time. You mean attack? Luca said. With one ship? Rourke gave him a look. With this ship. Revenant wasn't large. But it was a ghost in space, topped her stealth hull, magnetic shields, a loadout optimized for asymmetric warfare. What it lacked in brute force, it made up for in unorthodox lethality. Still, Luca wasn't wrong. Against 10 Gorvaks warforms, even a stealth dreadnought was a blade against the guillotine. Shar stepped forward. If we're doing this, we'll need to hit hard and vanish before they realize we're here. Then we hit them blind, Rourke said. Full skip into low orbit. Catch them mid-pass. Mother, prep a tactical layout, staggered EMP bursts, cloaked drone decoys, and spiked torpedoes aimed for thermal exhausts. Mother's interface pulsed. Tactical net prepared. Estimated survival chance, 17%. Better odds than Earth had, Rourke replied. That silenced the room. Ava turned toward the crew. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make speeches. She simply said, You don't have to stay. Any of you. If you want off, I'll drop you in the black with enough rations and a beacon to drift until pickup. But I'm going in. She waited. A long moment passed. Shar straightened. I'll lead the breach team if it comes to that. Luca rolled his eyes. If I die here, I'm haunting your coffee pot, Commander. Even Mother gave a wry inflection. Then let us write a chapter worth haunting. Ava exhaled, quiet relief beneath hard resolve. Helm, she barked. Begin jump prep. Target, high orbit over Calderon's rift. Tactical cloak engaged. Let's see what the monsters fear. The skip jump lasted less than 4 seconds. Space twisted. Stars smeared. And then the Revenant dropped into the shadow of a dying world. On the main screen, Calderon's rift burned. Fires raged across the northern hemisphere, where atmospheric bombardments had ignited whole sectors of forest and infrastructure. Orbital defense rings were shredded debris fields. Civilian shuttles fled in jagged vectors, many losing power mid-flight and plunging like stones. Around it, Gorvak's ships hung like black obelisks, unnaturally symmetrical, organic-looking hulls laced with chitinous armor and pulsating veins of plasma. They weren't ships in the traditional sense. They were more like living fortresses, evolved into tools of war. And they were circling like wolves. Jesus, Luca whispered. Those aren't warships. They're organisms. Rourke focused in. Run a scan on the closest one. Mother complied. Thermal core detected. Spinal weapon array powering. Preparing ground bombardment sequence. They're finishing it, Char said. Wiping the rest. Not yet, they're not, Rourke growled. Armed torpedoes. Ready the spike batteries. Torpedoes armed, Mother replied. Firing solution locked. Ava gave no speech. Just a single, clipped command. Fire. The Revenant decloaked for 1/2 second. In that time, it unleashed a flurry of guided munitions, silent missiles wrapped in sensor-absorbing polymers. They snaked through the void like shadows, slamming into the Gorvax ship's underside, where the armored flesh was softest. The explosion didn't shatter the vessel. It ruptured it, a rippling implosion as pressure ruptured internal organ structures. A dozen bone-like limbs thrashed. Glowing fluid jetted from what might have been arteries. A heartbeat later, it went dark. Target down, Mother confirmed. But now they were seen. The remaining Gorvax ships broke formation. New weapons came online, streaming lines of plasma, twisted energy coils, beam lances that carved the sky. Revenant spun on thrusters, diving back into stealth before the retaliation could land. Even still, a glancing beam scraped across the dorsal hull, scoring a molten line along its side. Shields down 10%, Luca muttered, gripping his panel. We poked the nest, we'd better keep stinging. They'll come looking now, Char said. Let them, Ava said. Her jaw clenched. Let them see what death looks like when it has nothing left to lose. The comms lit up. A transmission, alien-coded, rhythmic, harsh clicks overlaid with guttural modulation. Translated in real time by Mother. You violate territory of the Dominion. You are infestation. Erasure is law. Ava stared at the translation. She leaned toward the mic. This is Commander Ava Rourke of the human vessel Revenant. You've made a mistake. There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned. We make no mistakes. She smiled grimly. Then you're about to learn. The comm cut. Outside, space lit up with the glow of charging weapons. Inside the ship, alarms pulsed red. Everyone moved with practiced urgency. But there was no panic. Just the steady hum of humanity doing what it had always done when cornered by monsters. Fight. The void roared to life. Gorvax vessels scattered into aggressive formation, abandoning planetary bombardment to engage the Revenant, a single human ship that had somehow crippled one of their kind in open space. Commander Ava Rourke stood at the helm, chin up, gaze locked on the tactical display. No fear. Just calculation. Mother, she said. Scatter the decoys. Lock primary drives. Prep for a shadow loop. Confirmed. Releasing phantom signatures now. Dozens of sensor echoes spilled from Revenant, mimicking its heat trail and electronic pulse. Confusion bloomed. Enemy targeting wavered. One Gorvax destroyer fired wildly into a cloud of illusions. Idiots don't know which one we are, Luca muttered. Hope they stay stupid. They won't, Rourke replied. Gorvax are slow to adjust, but once they do, they don't stop. A volley of biolances arced from a flanking warform. Rourke swiveled to comms. Shar, you in position? Ready, came Imani's voice. Shuttle's hot. We're launching now. In the cramped belly of the infiltration skiff, Lieutenant Imani Shar buckled her harness as the hull trembled. Two Marines sat across from her, silent and pale. They were veterans, had seen horrors on lost colonies, but the thought of boarding a Gorvax ship? No one was trained for that. You know the plan, she said, eyes meeting each of theirs. Quick entry. Stealth gear only. Find their data core. Rip whatever we can. If we find survivors. She let the sentence dangle. They knew the odds. The shuttle launched, cloaked and cold burn. The Gorvax cruiser they targeted had taken minor damage and drifted slightly off formation. It wouldn't stay vulnerable for long. As they approached, the enemy vessel grew in scale, a massive, jagged beast of obsidian chitin and pulsing veins. Its hull glistened like wet bone. It didn't feel like a ship. It felt like they were flying into the mouth of something that should never have been born. Back aboard Revenant, Luca called out. Pulse charge loaded. EMP wide splash on their starboard wing. Launch, Rourke ordered. The torpedo flew silent. When it struck, the right half of the Gorvax formation spasmed. Lights dimmed. Their bioweapons crackled and stalled. Ava leaned in. Mother, prep second volley. Don't give them time to adapt. Mother's voice replied. They're already adapting. Defensive tissues are mutating around prior weak points. Of course they are, Rourke said. Monsters always get smarter just before they die. Inside the Gorvax cruiser, the boarding skiff's jaws opened with a soft hiss, releasing Shar and her team into a corridor that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. The air stank, like copper and rotting meat. Eyes up, she whispered. The floor wasn't metal. It flexed under their boots. Walls contracted subtly, like lungs exhaling. No sound but the slow, pulsing hum of organic systems and the steady thud of something large moving deeper inside. They passed cocoon structures, pods filled with fluids, with half-digested machinery and bones suspended inside. And then they found the first of them. Humans. Naked. Wired into the walls. Neural jacks plugged into skulls. Their eyes moved but saw nothing. Their bodies spasmed occasionally, twitching with unnatural rhythm. One Marine nearly dropped his weapon. What the hell are they doing to them? He whispered. Shar stepped forward. Scanned the interface. Symbols scrawled in strange patterns, but overlaid data rendered a translation. Cortex mapping. Pattern capture. Emotional stimulus tracking. Memory harvesting. They're trying to copy our brains, she said slowly. But not the logic centers. They're focused on unpredictability curves, emotional reaction triggers, impulse simulations. Why? She looked deeper. Data bloomed across her HUD. Evolutionary bottleneck. Gorvax lack adaptive irregularities. Pattern decay threatens dominance. Solution: biological assimilation of chaotic thought substrates. They're dying, she realized. Their minds are too ordered. They're predictable. And they know it. A wet growl echoed down the corridor. No one breathed. Then came movement, slithering and heavy. A Gorvax sentinel rounded the corner. 10 feet tall. 4 legs. 2 arm claws. Armored head like a beetle fused with a skull. Red eyes pulsed with heat. Contact! Shar barked. Weapons snapped up. The corridor lit with fire. The sentinel charged through stun rounds and shock lances like a tank. The Marines split. One was caught, lifted off the ground by a claw and slammed into the wall hard enough to dent it. Shar vaulted over piping, fired 3 times into a joint seam beneath the creature's jaw. Sparks. Black blood. It screeched, reared, and collapsed. 1 Marine down. 1 dying. She growled into comms. Rourke, we found their secret. They're harvesting us, our minds. They're trying to become more like us. Rourke didn't reply immediately. Then her voice came through, low and even. They want to be us. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. On Revenant, the tactical screen lit red. Enemy formations restructured. More precise. No more scatter fire. Their central AI had overridden fear with cold calculation. They're coming in focus now, Luca warned. Targeting our cloak frequencies. They're adapting again, Mother added. Evolving real-time defensive mutations. Classic Deathworld logic. Overwhelm and consume. Rourke frowned. No. It's desperation. They're mimicking our strategies. They're bleeding identity for survival. She stood tall. Then we'll show them what losing yourself really costs. Shar's team planted charges near the data core. Time was short. Their exit path was compromised. 1 corridor collapsed. Another flooded with corrosive mist. Extraction window is closing, Mother said over comms. 2 minutes before counter breach. Then light it up, Char said. The cruiser shook as explosions ruptured its organs. Black fluid gushed into the halls. Fires erupted. The ship bellowed, an awful animal sound. Char and her remaining marines sprinted toward the shuttle, wounded but alive. Behind them, walls melted, groaned, folded in on themselves. As the skiff launched, the Gorvax cruiser twisted in agony, and then detonated. Back on the Revenant, Rourke watched it burn. Char appeared on the bridge minutes later, limping, armor scorched. She tossed the data drive onto the console. They're trying to outgrow their programming, she said. Trying to rewrite themselves using us. And they failed, Rourke replied. Char nodded. They will again. Rourke looked out at the other warforms repositioning. Not if we don't let them, she said. Next time we hit harder. The Revenant was bleeding. Scorch marks traced across its hull. Hull plates buckled and exposed scorched circuits. Mother rerouted power every 10 seconds just to keep life support online. The bridge lights flickered, but the warship's heart still beat. Commander Ava Rourke sat at the center of it all, blood seeping through the bandage on her left arm, eyes locked on the swarm of Gorvax vessels closing in. Mother, she said, voice steady. What's left? 17 pulse charges. 3 functioning drone pods. Plasma cores unstable. Hull integrity at 42% and dropping. Enough, she said. Luca's voice crackled through a half-dead console. Engineering's holding with bubblegum and hate. I've got auxiliary power running through a coffee maker. Wouldn't be the first time. On the screen, the enemy realigned 7 ships now, circling like carrion birds. They weren't rushing. They'd learned from earlier mistakes. They moved in calculated arcs, their overlapping fields creating a perimeter around Revenant. They're trying to box us in, Char said. No more blind charges. They're thinking now. They're trying to beat us with our own tactics, Rourke replied. Let's teach them what thinking like humans really costs. She stood, limp to the interface, and pulled up the Gorvax fleet's formation data, the same net they had used to cull other species. Efficient. Predictable. And now flawed. Mother, prepare for full shadow burn. Dump all remaining decoys, cut cloak mid-thrust, and aim us right through that gap in their lateral chain. It's small, but their drones can't track it in real time. Confirmed. Warning, success probability below 20%. Better odds than sitting still. The Revenant dove like a dying hawk, erratic, smoking, and deadly. Cloak dropped. Decoys scattered. Engine screamed as the ship threaded through the gap, one narrow corridor between the wings of 2 converging warforms. Enemy weapons opened fire. Rourke barked. Deploy the mines, now! Explosive charges detonated behind them, not to destroy, but to blind the pursuit with heat and debris. The space between the ships filled with flashing debris, broken drones, and sensor echoes. The Revenant burst through, battered but alive. They were behind the fleet now. Ava locked her gaze on the massive flagship at the center of the Gorvax formation. Target the hive ship. That's where Zorisht is hiding. Char raised an eyebrow. You're going in? They need a message. One they'll remember. Aboard the Gorvax hive ship. Zorisht stood in the core chamber, massive and still, surrounded by pulsating synapse columns and flickering bioscreens. His armored exosuit was fused to the neural interface of the vessel itself, his mind layered across every weapon and decision made by his fleet. He had seen the humans adapt. He had witnessed unpredictability weaponized. And still, he believed victory inevitable. Then his screens dimmed. The human ship was no longer running. It was accelerating. Straight toward him. No logic. No strategy, he growled. Only madness. He failed to see the truth hiding inside the insanity. On board the Revenant. AI interface is ready, Mother said. We have breach coordinates. Target, their internal neural command lattice. Rourke pulled a drive from her belt, a sleek obsidian spike. Mother, when I'm in, you inject this into their main data core. No warnings. No safeguards. Let them choke on it. Understood. Commander, this course is terminal. Rourke smirked. I know. The boarding craft smashed into the flagship's hull with a deafening thud. Breach charges flared. The doors peeled open. Smoke, fire, blood. Rourke led the way through it all, sidearm raised, rifle across her back. The corridors pulsed and twisted. Alarms blared in alien tones. She moved like a storm through veins and bone. Halfway to the core, 3 Gorvax guards engaged her. The first charged. She sidestepped, firing once into its exposed flank. It dropped. The second slashed, blades like bone sabers. She ducked under the swing, shot it twice in the jaw, and kept moving. The third lunged. She let it get close, and then drove her combat knife straight into its eye. She moved fast. Not clean. Not efficient. Human. Finally, she reached the heart of the hive, an open chamber of spiraling neural columns, each glowing, humming, alive with thought. At the center was Zorishk. Twice her size. Armor-plated. Part organic, part machine. He stepped forward. You are alone. Rourke didn't flinch. You should have stayed afraid. You mistake chaos for strength. You mistake predictability for power. She shot back. We lost our home. We lost our history. But we didn't lose what matters. You think we're weak because we feel. Because we improvise. Because we fight with blood and laughter and rage. She held up the spike. This isn't a virus. It's a gift. He lunged. She hurled the drive into the neural core. Mother activated it. All across the Gorvax fleet, madness bloomed. Their perfect order shattered as Mother's code injected recursive illogic. Tactical loops. Memory drift. Simulated grief. False stimuli. Unfiltered chaos. Zorishk staggered, roaring. You corrupted us. No, Rourke said. We set you free. Outside, the Gorvax ships fractured. One by one, they began to fire on each other. Drones went rogue. Shields dropped without cause. Engines shut down mid-maneuver. Some vessels turned and fled, others simply drifted, unresponsive. The fleet was dying. Not by weapons. By fear. Ava barely escaped, dragged out by Shar and Luca, who'd used a backup shuttle to punch through the hull. They watched the hive ship collapse from orbit. A cascading implosion. Glowing veins ruptured. The entire structure folded in on itself like a dying starfish. The other ships retreated. Not in formation. Not with purpose. But broken. Leaderless. Afraid. Hours later, on the scorched bridge of the Revenant, Ava stood in silence, watching Calderon's rift below. Fires were dying. Survivors were surfacing. A colony had endured. A signal came through the comms. Not from the fleet. From a dozen other species. Outposts. Smugglers. Refugees. Even old enemies. They had seen the footage. Heard the scream of the hive ship's collapse. The galaxy now knew humanity wasn't prey. They were a catalyst. A storm. Mother's voice returned, soft but sharp. Zorishk's last words were recorded. Would you like to hear them? Ava nodded. A harsh, broken whisper echoed through the room. They are not a species. They are a storm. Ava smiled, blood still dried along her temple. Good. She turned toward her crew. Let's show the rest what happens when the galaxy forgets.